shape of the tractor starting to come along. Really like the lines of it, like the way it's looking. It's low and it's sleek. Next thing I'd like to do is get this properly mounted on the hood so that it's mounted. I don't have to worry about it sliding off. I want to drill a hole for the carburetor. And then in the back, I want to figure out how we're going to mount these fenders. We're going to mock up some temporary spacers to make sure I like the way that works. Spreading the wheels out another 2 inches on each side. We're going to do that with some longer bolts and some PEX pipe, just so we can mock it up, see where the fenders would sit, make sure I like the look of that. As long as I like the look of that, I'll go get the spacers on order, and let's figure this thing out up here. All right, so right now I got this sitting on a brick. Down here, this is the original bracket. That bracket, if you remember, was up here before. It mounted to the top side of the frame, which is where we have the axle now. So what I want to do is I just want to lift the hood off of here. This is about where, this has got a little fiberglass damage there. We'll have to sand that out and fix that. That's going to need a little repair. Looks like Gramps ran into something there. But what we'll do is we'll get this bracket off of here. Right now it's holding the whole thing out. That way we can see where it sits, make sure we're comfortable with where the hood is and where this is. And then we can go ahead and drill our hole for the carburetor to come through. So. All right, so this looks better already. This is the gap over here on the side that we're trying to, it was opened up quite a bit, we're trying to get it closed like that. So that's about where that needs to be there with the hood sitting right on the dash. So I've got this sitting right now in the bolt that holds in the front axle. This is the bracket that came on the tractor. And it almost looks like if I flipped it up the other way, it would sit on top of that plate that we turned around and welded, and then it might be able to hold this in place. So I'm gonna try to do that. I'm gonna try to rebolt that bracket on, flipped upside down, and then set it on that plate and see if that works. If that works, then we can go ahead and tack weld it on there. We've got a good place to attach this to. Then we have to find a brace to run this back to the engine somehow, is how it was installed before. And then it's going to be key to cut the hole in the hood for the carburetor, because right now it's teetering on the carburetor. We got to get that adjusted. This is the plate here. That was that original Z bracket that was flipped over the other way and mounted underneath. Now it's flipped upside down, mounted on top, and it gets us a little bit more space in there. Brought the hood down to right there, which I love the look of that. I think that's super cool. That bracket there, I think instead of bolting it down, or instead of welding this plate in here, I'm just gonna drill a couple holes and slide a couple bolts in it so I can still play with the hood a little bit back and forth before it's welded tight. There's the carburetor, and it's sitting right on the roof of the hood. So what I want to do is I want to get that marked up from the underside. I'll reach up under there, mark that. We can go ahead and get this hood mounted up in here. Sir. Let me get the camera over here so you can see what I'm looking at. So with the hood sitting in its new position, which is right about there, you can see the hood's forward more because this used to center over top of the flywheel. The flywheel has not moved, but the hood moved forward on the tractor. So what we're gonna have to do is arc cut this from here up and around. Another thing is, we're gonna get rid of most of these fins off of here. because these were here to flip air up into the cold air return that went up into the carburetor. Without needing that, because now we're getting our cold air from the front, a lot of these fins will go away. So before I clearance cut this here, I'm going to get rid of the fins on the flywheel and see what we look like there. So not quite sure I'm going to get those off. It looks like we might have to just grind them all off. This can be a long and tedious task, but I got to get down to where I got to keep the flywheel, because the starter engages down here and to the flywheel, and that's what, you know, the electric start works. So got to keep this on here, but I can get rid of the fins. So we'll take the flywheel off for now and fit the hood. All right, so I like how it's coming together. This over here is where the coil went before. That's obviously going to come off of there. I've got a good hole now for this. I'll end up cutting the hole a little bit bigger in the hood. That was kind of a guide hole. I'll end up trimming it nicer for around here. I'll probably put a piece of gasket or something over the top of this, so when the hood closes down, it actually touches that all the way around and seals the air off there. And then we've got a unit coming that's going to sit on the top. That'll be like an air induction scoop, kind of a hot rod chrome looking thing. Pretty good look on the top of this thing. So let's go ahead and drill some holes so we can leave the hood on. This thing is not sliding off on us. That's done at that point. We can go ahead and we can get this remounted too. This here has little clips on the side of it that actually kind of catch into the hood. They don't really latch, but they do, I guess in a way they do latch to it. So we can put that back together, get the hood mounted on here, and then I want to jump around and space out those back tires so we can really figure out what the final stance of this thing's going to look like. So the idea here is I've got some longer bolts. They should be the same thread pattern as these. They are. So I'm going to cut three, some PEX piping. I'm going to cut three 2-inch spacers, and I'll just run the bolts through the wheel, through the spacers, bolt it on there. That'll hold the wheel out where I need it to be temporarily, so I can get my fenders fit. And as long as I like the look of it and everything's coming together well, then I go ahead and order some 2-inch spacers. No sense in doing it before I know if I'm going to like it. Let's go cut some spacers. Okay, so obviously we're not going to run a vehicle like this, but we can certainly mock it up that way. So bolt, 2-inch PEX spacer, put it through there, put this on the other side of it, and simply thread it in. And the way that this wheel is set up, I can get in behind it quite nicely, and so I'll be able to put the other spacers on from the back side. And I'll just put 3 in each wheel. And like I say, it's not enough to spacer, not enough to drive on. Don't try this on your car at home or anything. Just, you know, trying to, tractor weighs a lot less. These bolts will definitely hold the weight of it. Just want to, we'll be mocking up here. I'm a little bit crazy, but I ain't that crazy. I like the shirt that says, my mom didn't raise any dummies, and if she did, it's probably my brother. Got all that extra space up there on that side that we don't have on that side. So first thing I noticed is it's going to make the seat fit a lot more comfortably. We can pull the seat back in here. It's going to pull that wheel out to the side. Okay, it's just 2 inches. You can see my spacers in here. That's all it did. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side so you get the look of it. It is going to give it a much wider stance. It's going to give me a lot more room back here. I could probably do a luggage rack off a Triumph back there. But then what it'll do is the fenders that sit up in here like this. So the fenders used to sit kind of like that. So tire was hanging out the side, fender was in quite a bit from the wheel. And the fenders, you can see they go up like this on the side. What I want to do is I want to bring the center point of the fender up a little bit more, flatten the top of it out, bring it to the outside of the wheel. Obviously on this side, we're going to have to bring it out a lot farther. So what we'll need to do is replace this bracket here. We're going to change the angle on the end of it just a little bit, and we're going to have to widen it. But we should be able to use the exact same bolt holes, everything else. And then you can see the space that's going to give me in here between those. They already need to be spread 4 inches anyways. Now we're going to be looking at maybe spreading them about 8 inches, but I really like the extra space. Running exhaust through here is definitely going to be helpful with that. Now remember the front, now it's going to tuck the front in from the back, so that, you know, the front line here is going to be tucked in. But remember, we're bringing these out 2 inches as well, because we've got to get ourselves some clearance off the flywheel on this side. Don't you love how low that thing sits to the ground? Look at that. Carburetor out the top of the hood. Looking sharp. All right, both wheels are set out 2 inches. That's where the fenders used to sit. Just not going to cut it anymore. Look at that stance though. Nice. Definitely ordering those spacers. Love the way it looks. Took the center brace out. Got these fenders cut apart. And just to fab them up, I'm going to take a piece of rebar. There's a hole in the backside right there. Cut a piece of rebar that fits between the wheels. Doesn't quite fit now, so I'm going to take the old Christmas tree bit, just make that a hair bigger. Gives us an idea of how it's going to sit. These fenders have these indentations in them. That was part of how the old seat sat in there. And I'm trying to decide what I want to do with that, because it won't let me get the fender out completely over the wheel. I'm hitting on the inside. So, I mean, I guess if I was a better fabricator, I'd just cut this out and then weld a patch in there. And I might want to do that, but I just don't know if that's a skill level I'm happy with yet or what. I might just leave them so a little bit of the tire shows out like that. But you can see there's the old bracket. You can see how much we've spread them apart. If I touch that to that side over here, we're good 5, maybe 6 inches apart. So the other option is, I've got this fender here that I just tripped over. It's for a much larger wheel, but I think it could be rolled in a little bit. Give kind of a cool old kind of a trucker look, where they wrap the back wheels with the fenders that go pretty low to the ground. So I don't know, kind of digging the original look of the tractor fenders though. So I'm gonna play with this a little bit off camera, see what I come up with. going to keep the original tires on it, front and back. I want to keep a lot of the originality of this tractor just because it was my grandfather's. There's a lot of memories with this tractor, working with my grandfather, my dad, my mom, my brothers and sisters out on their piece of property and tilling the garden, mowing the grass, doing that kind of thing. So I'm keeping a lot of it fairly original. New wheel covers here instead of new rims and tires and that sort of thing. But today, we want to do the fenders. So my idea for the fender is to take this steel trailer fender, cut it in half here. I'll mark that and we'll cut that. And then we're just going to put the fender on the front of the wheel. So it'll sit in kind of a little bit tighter to the wheel, fit the curvature of the wheel a little bit better. And you can see I've got a piece of angle down here at the bottom. I think I'm going to take that angle out to save some weight. We're going to do the smaller square tube, stock 1/2 inch square tube. And what we'll do is we'll put a square tube down here on the bottom, and we'll put another one up here at the top that'll go through here about someplace ahead of where the battery and the fuel tank are going to go in the back. That should give us all kinds of space, and it'll keep my arms off the tire because this seat will probably go back just a little bit further than it is. All right, I'm gonna bring this factory edge here. This is the cut edge, factory edge. I'm gonna put the factory edge up at the top. I'm gonna let it roll around the tire like that. So that got a pretty sharp look to it. All right, so that's gonna sit like that. Basically protects my arms from the spinning tire, and it gives it a kind of real dragster look to it. This piece of square tube will go across those supports, connect there. That's where the front of it will connect. Then we'll put a piece in the back to hold the back side of it up. Basically, the square tube goes right about there. So down here we have our shifter. That's where we're first, second, third, and reverse. So that has to be accessible. And I think what I want to do is I want to bring it out the side of the seat over here. So I've got a piece of 1/2 inch brown stock. My thought is this shifts left, right, and then in the middle is neutral, I guess, and then it goes up and down. And that's, so this is forward, first, second, third, reverse. So this rod needs to come out the side here, and we're gonna put the original handle back on it. So what I think I want to do is attach this, but I'll do the fender first, and then I'll make sure this works around the fender, in front of the wheel, that sort of thing. So let's get the welder set up, get some measurements on this square tray here, make sure we're about the same distance on both sides. Get it up there, and I'm going to set it square like this, so the fender sits square against it, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I've got my piece of square stock on there. I'm basically just measuring from the outside, the inside of the tire to the outside of the square stock is 7 inches on that side, and it is 6 inches on this side. So I'm just going to come this way another 1/2 inch. Roughly that measurement, that piece will be underneath the wheel. You won't really even see it underneath the fender. That's 6 1/4. But get as close as we can. So next thing is off my table. I am 10 inches on this side, 10 1/2 on that side. So let me bring that side down just a little bit. Might need another clamp to keep that from sliding right there. So I'm at 10 1/2 there. I'm at 10 1/2 there. So I've got this parallel with the ground, and I've got it centered left and right. So I do want to roll it a little bit when I go to weld it. So I think what I'm going to do is leave it marked right there. Take that off. Put him like that. Just reassess on my measurements for make sure I'm right. And then I'm just going to roll them flat like that. And I'll tack them in here, tack them on the other side. And then when he's held in place, we'll be good to go. like that. That's looking pretty good. So I'm going to tack it over here on this side, go back, put another tack on the other side, take my clamps off, double check the measurements, make sure I'm happy with that. Yeah, I really like the way that looks. I think what I'm going to do with the fender is I'm going to take this cut edge, I'm going to put a little notch in the back here and let that notch sit over top of that. I'll bring the fender out where I want it, which is pretty much covering the whole wheel. Then I can go back in here and put another piece on the back side, weld it together from one side to the other. And once I do that, then I can just put a support from here up to there, put two little risers, and that'll hold this in the back. Maybe do a angled bracket as well to give it some structural support. So let's go ahead and cut some notches. All right, we're gonna cut both fenders at the top here on both sides, because the bracket comes through on the back and the front. So what I want to do is hold a piece of this square stock in here where it's sitting, where it would be flat, and then I can just mark that little bit out of there. And I'll do the same thing down here. And we're just going to cut a little notch out of it so it'll slide on there and get good support all the way around. Basically, that's what I got. I got the little notch out of there, and I got a little notch out of that side over there. Same thing on this one. That way we don't actually cut the front of the fender where it's got that nice rolled over edge. We're cutting the back squared edge where, well, nobody will really ever see it because it'll be underneath. So I'm gonna leave my pen marks when I cut this out here, because that is the, visible still beyond the square. So I'll just cut the inside metal out of there, and we should be able to set it right back up there. We'll weld the other brace to the back side to keep the fenders parallel with each other. And when we've got that, we can tack on the front. We're probably gonna use a bunch of clamps and just kind of get it where we want it before we tack anything, just so we're happy. We're probably going to take the back wheels off to get the welds on the inside, because we won't be able to reach them with the wheels in the way, but they'll be part of the body of the vehicle. Then it won't be removable at that point, because we're welding right to the frame at this point. So the fenders will be structural, part of the frame of the vehicle, but the rear end still removable, wheels still removable. So let's make it happen. That's exactly what we're looking for there. So the metal will come into there. I can weld all the way around that on three sides. If you can see that real well. Hope I got a good camera angle on that, but I can weld all the way around there. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so basically here's what we got going on. We got a front bracket down here. We got a back bracket up there. We're looking like this. But obviously we got to lift it up a little bit to get it off the tire. And put a tape measure in there as a spacer for a second.
I'm definitely wanting to bend those fenders a little bit more first. Let's try that. Okay, once again, we're using the seamstress tape, and we've got 24 inches over here because we had 48 and we cut that in half. So I'm going to come into the 8-inch mark here, and I'm going to come into the 16-inch mark over here, so I'm equally spaced. And I'm just going to make a relief cut there, and make a relief cut there. Then I'll turn this over, and I'll do the exact same on the back, coming in here, so I don't get any warpage when I try to twist it. 8-inch and 16, and I'm not sure how wide these relief cuts will have to be for me to get the bend that I'm looking for, but this is part of what I'm trying to do on the Triumph Spitfire project, is get my fenders tighter around the wheel. So great practice. Let's see what happens here when we go for it. Now I won't get much bend here before those 2 points touch, but I don't want to cut big wedges in it either and then find out I cut it too big. So first time trying this, let's put it on the tire, see how it works. Okay, so we're gonna throw it up on the tire here, and I can get a little, oh yeah, that's gonna bend a little bit. Bends in a little bit tighter, but I'm still getting not quite the radius I want. So I think my options are to do more of these radius cuts, but I'm worried about trying to make this right again. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wedge each of these, and so it's a little bit more room for it to bend here. I also don't want this to look like a three-sided fender. I want a nice even bend. So I'm gonna wedge these just a little bit. I'm not gonna go crazy. If it doesn't give me enough, I'll probably come back, relief it here, here, and here. So then every 4 inches instead of every 8 inches. We're playing with it here. We're learning. We're figuring stuff out. Some of you probably know exactly what I need to do, and tell me in the comments. But by the time I read those comments, well, hopefully it'll be done. Again, we'll put it up here on the wheel, and yeah, I'm getting quite a bit of bend in it there. I like that. It's coming better. Not exactly where I want it, but I tell you what, I think if I bend that down, I think I might put a ratchet strap around this, pull it to the shape of the tire a little bit better. Maybe I can get them to wrap together, and then I just tack those welds and hopefully not melt the tire. We'll see what happens over here. So we got a strap underneath the tire. Oh, I'm going to ratchet it the first time. I'm just going to try to pull it through. Put a little pressure on it. I don't want to bend anything here right off the bat. I want to see if this is even a feasible idea. And I think it might be. Can you see how that kind of took its shape better? I'm using the tire as a support underneath it. Give me the right radius and keep it flat. And I think that about has it. You see that? So I'm still round here, which is nice. I'm coming close here and here. So I think if I put some vice grips on those and just get them where I want them, I could probably tack that. And we'll take it off and see if we have the same shape. I'm gonna see if I can pull it just a little bit more. too hot and burning through there. You turn that down a little bit. Better. There we go. Just straighten that out a little bit. I think that's going to look nicer when I weld it. Let's see what we get. All right, so I've got my tape measure back up here. There's my spacer again. But now see how I'm getting that shape. I want a little bit of room in here because I don't want to pinch fingers between metal and tire if somebody happens to put their hand in there. So I like that amount of space. It fits so much better now than it did before. You're going to do the other one the same way. I'll grind this down, get that ground down flat, fill in my little spot there. And then here, I'm just going to take that and hammer that a little bit once it's welded tight just to get rid of that little you know, flat spot that we got there, but I think that's going to look great. See it'll go in there. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to weld on our handle here. I'm going to think about that overnight, work on that tomorrow, how I'm going to get that to work. I'm going to get that big old pulley off of there. And this is tacked on here really nice. Now that's going to hold my fenders. Once this is tacked on, we go ahead and mount the seat back on here. Of course, everything's just being mocked up at this point. We're going to take it all apart to paint it, but really like the progress we made today. Give me a thumbs up if you think that fender is a better look than the old red tractor fenders we had in there. See how it covers the tire completely? I really like the way that's coming together. All right, I've been summoned up to Sears to the editing room. We've got another short getting ready to pop up. So if you guys haven't checked out my shorts, well, that doesn't sound appropriate, but if you haven't checked out my little shorts on the channel, go ahead and do that. We popped up one of a little box I made out of a Coca-Cola crate to hold some of my Lego projects, and right now we're getting ready to pop another one up, and this one here is going to be we went to an auto auction yesterday and took pictures of 102 of the wheels that I saw that I thought were kind of cool. Put together a little video. So sitting up here in the studio doing some editing, and let's pop this thing up.